And now we're on Daf Mem Zayin Amid Beis. We spoke about the category of Shemen of Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha. Now we go on to another category, Meruba Begodim. So this is a Kohen Gadol who wears 4 extra garments above and beyond a Kohen Hedjo, totaling 8 garments. And he's called Meruba Begodim. And he was appointed, and his chinuch, his entering into the status of a Kohen Gadol was generated by Levisha of 8 Bigdei Kahuna. Now, at the time that they had Shemen HaMishcha, it was available, it was extant. Then the meaning of Kohen Gadol was through Shemen HaMishcha. But from the time of Yoshiyahu HaMelech, at the time of the end of Bais Rishon, the Shemen HaMishcha was put into Gniza, and they didn't have access to the Shemen HaMishcha. And the Torah says at the end of Sefer Shmos, Shemen Mishchas Kodesh Yeh Zeh Li L'Dorosechem. So what was the method by which the Kohen Gadol was mismana, and he was able to have a chinuch to upgrade his status as kedusha to that of a Kohen Gadol? It was through ribui begodim. And the Gemara now claims that Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha Adif, certainly the kedusha and the maila of Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha is that much greater than the Kohen Gadol of Meruba Begodim. And therefore, the latter will be Mitami Lemes. And the reason for this is the Ilu Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha Mevi Par Chatos Habal Kol HaMitzvahs. If, let's say, for example, the Kohen Gadol was Chote B'Shogeg in an Avera of Kares, an Avera that would generate a Chi of Kares B'Mezid, then a Kohen Gadol of one of the 2 types that we're discussing would be required to bring a special carbon, which is called a Par Haba Al Kol HaMitzvahs. And this is a special par for the violation of one of the mitzvahs, which would generate a chiyuv kares. And this is derived from Vayikra Perek Dalid, Nefesh ki sechta b'shkaga, mikol mitzvah Hashem asher lo te'asena. So that would apply to a Kohen Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha. Ve'ilu meruba begodim ein mevi. He, despite the fact that he violated b'shogeg a chet of kares, he does not bring that special carbon, but rather he brings what's called a kizba or a se'ira, which is classic of a carbon chatas of any ish Yisrael who violates an avera sheyesh ba kares. So that whereas in the case of a Kohen Mashuach Milchama, Kohen Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha, we have a special status and a special unique carbon. If he violates this Isur of Mezid B'Kares, but he violated B'Shogeg, but such a special carbon doesn't apply to Meruba Begodim, and that Kohen Gadol who's Meruba Begodim will fall into the general category of a Kizba or a Se'ira rather than a Par. And that's the general category for any Jew who is obligated to bring a Karban Chatos. Now the Gemara brings another case. And we're going to talk about another situation in which, on the contrary, it would seem that Meruba Begodim is greater than a Kohen Mashuach. And it says the following. If they encountered a mes mitzvah, then Mashuach, the Kohen Mashuach b'Shemen HaMishcha, she'avar, which we'll explain in a minute, the Kohen Gadol Meruba Begodim, who is now serving currently as in the capacity, the position of a Kohen Gadol, then Meruba Begodim Adif. Now, even though the Kohen Mashuach Milchama has a greater kedusha, and even though there's vestiges of that kedusha even after Avar Mikunoso, his kahuna terminated, but nevertheless, he goes down one level as a result of the fact that he was Avar Mikunoso, and now the Meruba Gadim becomes Adif. His Milas Kedusha is greater than that of a Mashuach B'Shem Mishcha. And the reason for that is the Meruba Begadim Avid Avoda, Ve'ilu Mashuach Sha'avar Lava Bavoda, who the Meruba Begadim will bring the Avoda in the Beis HaMikdash as the Kohen Gadol, and the Mashuach B'Shem Mishcha will no longer serve in the capacity of the Avoda. He's not royal avoda, and therefore, in the choice between him and the Meruba Begadim as to who should be Mitami Lemes, we're going to advocate in favor of the Mashuach B'Shem Mishcha to be Mitami Lemes. And that's also simple in the Gemara's assumption because he's not royal avoda. He was Avar. He was removed from his position. Now, this whole sugya that we're learning is really a sugya at the beginning of Masechet Yoma on Daf Yud Beis. And in Masechet Yoma, the Gemara quotes Rabbi Yossi, who's of the opinion that a Kohen Gadol she'avar me'avodaso, for example, let's say the Kohen Gadol was meant to serve on Yom Kippur, but he contracted tumas keri in that case, and they had to replace him in order to salvage the Yom of Kapara by replacing him with another Kohen Gadol. Now, after Yom Kippur, the original Kohen Gadol who contracted tumah and couldn't serve on Yom Kippur, even though he was replaced, he, the first, will continue his avodah. And the second Kohen Gadol will not serve at all in the Beis HaMikdash. And the reason for this is because of what's called Ava. We don't want to create a friction and allow the replacement Kohen Gadol of Shmona Begadim to continue his avodah while the first Kohen Gadol was reinstated. On the other hand, the Meruba Begadim, once he had served in the Beis HaMikdash with 8 Begadim as a Kohen Gadol, he can no longer serve as a Kohen Hedjot because of another principle, which is called Mailim Bekodesh V'Ein Moridin. So he's in that kind of limbo state. He cannot serve neither as a Kohen Gadol nor as a Kohen Hedjot. Now, a Kohen Gadol Meruba Begadim, if he became Tomei on Yom Kippurim, and then they did a Mashicha of a Kohen Gadol to replace the Kohen Meruba Begadim who contracted Tumah after Yom Kippur, then the Kohen Rishon, the first Kohen, even though he's only Meruba Begadim, he will resume his position as the Kohen Gadol, and the Mashuach B'Shem Mishcha can no longer do the avodah, and his status is that of what's called a Mashuach Sha'avar. He once was a Kohen Gadol, and he was the replacement of a Kohen Meruba Begadim, but now that Yom Kippur passed, the Meruba Begadim will now be reinstated after his Tara is achieved, and the Mashuach Kohen Gadol is called, the Mashuach is called a Kohen Gadol Sha'avar. So now we establish that in the case of a Kohen Mashuach Milchama Sha'avar, it means that after Yom Kippur we replace or reinstate to be the Meruba Begadim. Now, if both of these would encounter a mess, then it's the Kohen Mashuach Mulcham, I'm sorry, I keep saying Mashuach Mulcham, I mean Mashuach B'Shem Mishcha. Since we said he's no longer royal avoda because he's avar, he's going to be the one to be tamil emes. Okay, now we have another circumstance of two Kohanim Gedolim that encountered a mes mitzvah, avar, which means a Kohen Gadol that no longer serves as a Kohen Gadol, machmas kirio, he contracted tumas keri. So we have one Kohen Gadol that could no longer do the avoda because he's tamei. Now we have another Kohen Gadol shalavar, but his situation is totally different. Machmas mumo. What does that mean? He had a mum kavua, some sort of physical blemish or injury, or for that matter, he becomes a Kohen Gadol sha'over machmas mumo, even in the case of what's called a mum over, a mum that will eventually be healed. In both of these cases, he's not royal avoda. Now, let's make the following comment. In the case of a Balkari, his tumah is what's called a tumas erev, and he's only tummy for a total of 1 day. And therefore, the Gemara is absolutely convinced that the Kohen Sha'avar Machmas Kirio Adif, his Mila is that much greater than a Kohen Gadol Sha'avar Machmas Mumo. Tilu Hai, in the case of Keri, Chazi Lavod L'Mochar. Tomorrow will be back in the, how do we say, in pictures, back in the box, you know what I mean? And he'll wait to be Matar himself after Harav Shemesh, and he'll continue in his avodah as if nothing happened. But the ilu over machmas mumo lo chazi lavoda, we can't tell you that tomorrow he's going to be back in the box and he's going to be royal avoda. We have to wait till nisrape mumo, until he's able to heal. And this is based on a parsha in Vayikra Chaf Aleph, and therefore, since this one, meaning the Avar Machmas Kirio, will be the first of the two to be royal avoda, his mila is greater, and therefore the Kohen Shavar Machmas Mum, he will be the one to be mitami to a mes mitzvah. So all that until this point is simple. We know the laws of Kedima based on logic, but Iboilu, here's where we get stuck. We have a Kohen Gadol Mashuach Milchama. He was a Kohen who had a Mashicha B'Shem HaMishcha, but he had a very specific role. And the Pasuk tells us in the 20th chapter of Devarim that V'hoyeb kikarvachem ela milchama, when the troops are about to go out to battle, v'nigash haKohen v'dibra la'am, then the Kohen Mashuach Milchama will go out and speak to the people. And basically he tells them that they shouldn't be overwhelmed by fear, they should be courageous. And he tells them which of them should have to go back to their homes and leave the Marachas HaMilchama. So he has a status that's very similar to that of a Kohen Gadol, because he does have Mishicha B'Shem HaMishcha. But on the other hand, he doesn't serve the way a Kohen Gadol would normally serve. Now we have somebody called the Skan Kohen. He was appointed as a second string Kohen. It's interesting how baseball could help us here. I suppose in hockey there's something similar. I don't know.
Not sure.
What?
Not sure. I don't know.
I remember one of my favorite chavrusas in Toronto there were certain days he couldn't meet with me because they were busy. He was busy with his young son in the rink, learning and practicing hockey. So I asked him, how old is your son? He told me he's 7 years old. I was like in a state of shock. Anyway, so now we have a Skan Kohen Gadol. He's in the waiting room, that if there'll be a psul in the Kohen Gadol, he will step into the shoes of the Kohen Gadol, second string, and he will be mishamesh and do the avoda like a Kohen Gadol. And now the two of them, Mashuach Milchama and the Skan Kohen Gadol, meet up with a mes mitzvah. Haiminayu Odif. Which one has a greater mila? Which one has a lower mila, and therefore he should be mitame? And the Gemara analyzes the suffix. Mashuach Milchama Odif, I would say that he has a certain status, and therefore the Mashuach Milchama is on a greater level than the Skan. The Skan is not even entered into the rink yet. He's still in the on-deck circle, so to speak, or as we'd call it in baseball, the bullpen, which I never understood that phrase, but anyway, the Chazi L'Milchama. This Mashuach Milchama is roy to do that great avoda, that task, if there will be a Milchama. And Nismane Lotzeis Ima'am L'Milchama, V'Rabim Tluyim Bo. And the success of the Milchama depends upon the Mashuach Milchama. And that's why he was Nimshach B'Shemen HaMishcha, to reflect on that special status and Kedusha that he has. The Skan is just, as we said, on deck. Oh, Dilma, no. Skan Adif. He's greater than the Mashuach Milchama. And why is that? Because Chazi Lavoda. The Skan was designated as such to do the avodah of Yom Kippurim if there'll be a psul in the first string Kohen Gadol. So his minui is a different kind of a minui. He's not a minui just for Milchama. He's a minui for avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. And the Gemara vacillates now, which kedusha is that of greater? One is the kedusha of Milchama, the other is the kedusha of avodah. Toshma, Tisanya, because we learned in the Brisa that Ein Bein Mashuach Milchama L'Skan, the only difference between a Mashuach Milchama and a Skan, Kohen Gadol, in terms of the dinim of Kahuna, Ella, it's only in one nafkamina. Shem Hayu Mahalchi B'derech U'Motzu Mes Mitzvah Yitami Mashuach Milchama Yitami Skan. Shucks. I thought it was going to be the other way around. But I really do appreciate the Gemara's conclusion, at this point at least, because, as we said before, the Skan is Roy Lavoda. The Mashuach Milchama is not Roy Lavoda. He does have Mashicha. So Gemara asks immediately a steer from another brisa. Tanya, we have a brisa that says, and this is a brisa in the second chapter of Masechet Horios, which deals with all the dinim of triage. Mashuach Milchama Kodim L'Skan. His Mila, because he had Shemen HaMishcha, is greater and superior to that of the Skan, which would seem to imply that Mashuach Milchama is greater than the Skan, and therefore, in the case of Tumah, in an encounter with a mes mitzvah, it should be the Skan who should be Mitami, not the Mashuach Milchama. That's against the brisa that says explicitly, the previous brisa, that Mashuach Milchama is the one who should be Mitami. Omar Mar Zutra. Mar Zutra comes along to reconcile this contradiction between the two brises. And he says the following, that the Tosefta that would put first the Mashuach Milchama as having a greater kedusha, that's linyan lehachyosa. We need a triage in a case where there's a mapoles, some sort of an avalanche that fell, and of course, immediately I associate that with Miami, Florida, of course. Anyway, so the Mashuach Milchama will be saved first. Adif, his Mila is greater than that of a Sgan. And if we have to save only one of them, or if there's a sequence, who should we save first? We're going to save first the Mashuach Milchama. And that's indicated by the second brisa that says Mashuach Milchama Kodem Liskan. And the Gemara says, my timer, why is the Mashuach Milchama first? And the answer is the Tolubei Rabbin. Because he is really at the forefront of the Milchama for the benefit of the Rabbin. And he's called a Rosh Archei Milchama, V'chai Yisrael Tluyim Bo. However, the second brisa that says that, just one second. Well, actually, we'll call it's the second brisa because it means the other brisa, but it really means the first of the two brisas sequentially. And that's Li'inyan Tuma. Which one of the two should be Matami himself? Skan Odif. We give us a superior position to that of the Skan. The Mashuach Milchama is the one who's going to be Matami. And why? We just finished saying that we'll save the Mashuach Milchama first. And the reason why a Skan is Adif Linyan Tuma is the Sanya because of the Brisa of Rab Chanina ben Antignos, Lama Tiknu, Skan Kohen Gadol, Shem Era Bo Psul, if the Kohen Gadol becomes Pasul, Hari Nichnas Mishamish Tachtov. So as far as Tum is concerned, the Skan is greater because if the Kohen Gadol, the first string Kohen Gadol becomes Pasul, then we need the Skan to enter into his shoes to do the Avodah Tachtov, and he's got to be ready for that. He's got to be in a state of Tara. Now he comes in contact with a Mes Mitzvah. We don't want him to be Mitami because we need him there to step into the shoes of the Kohen Gadol in the event that the Kohen Gadol first string contracted Tumah. Now the Gemara is medayik from our Mishnah that a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir are both permitted to be Mitami to a Mes Mitzvah. I can't lo pligi the machlok shin Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham and Mishnah Ella is only with regard to Kohen Gadol and Nazir Mikoy Ozli Bahadi Hadodi, that when they're going together in the road and they encounter Mes Mitzvah, which of the two should be Mitami? And according to Rabbi Eliezer, it's Dafka, the Kohen Gadol should be Mitami. According to the Chachamim, it's the Nazir, Chad Lechudei. But if either of these two are going alone, then Barit Mune Inum, then certainly he would be Mitami. Everyone's mutter to be Mitami to a Mes Mitzvah, Minani Mili. What's the source for this halacha, this premise that underlies the entire Mishnah, that both a Kohen Gadol and a Nazir are allowed to be Mitami to a Mes Mitzvah? The Tana Rabbana we learned in a Brisa, and now we're darshaning a parsha in Vayikra Chaf Aleph, and it says, "I'll call nafshos meis lo yava." This is in the parsha of a Kohen Gadol, in the beginning of Parsha Zemar. But Mea Kosim Medaber, the Brisa says, what's the case in which the Kohen Gadol is not allowed to be Mitami for a mess? If they are non-relatives, then Kavachomer. Ma Kohen Hedget Shu Mitami L'Krov Meina Mitami L'Rechokim is Kohen Gadol Sheina Mitami L'Krov Meina Din Sheina Mitami L'Rechokim. Right? The Torah says that a Kohen Hedjot is allowed to be Mitami to Krovim, to his close relatives, as it says Lioviv, right, etc., etc. And then by Kohen Gadol it says Lioviv Limo Lo Yitame. So certainly he's not Mitami to Rechokim, to those who are not related to him. Ella, the pasuk I'll call Nefashos Meis Lo Yovo is Bekrovim Akosu Medaber. He's talking about one of the 7 close relatives where a Kohen Hedjot would be Mitame, and yet because he's a Kohen Gadol, I'll call Nefashos Meis Lo Yovo. Now, once we derive the Isur to be Mitami the Krovim, in the case of a Kohen Gadol, then why does it mention the Aviv Lo Yitame? If the Torah is saying, I'll call Nefashos Meis Lo Yavo, then why bother mentioning Aviv? And explicitly adding an extra word to teach us that he's not Metame Li'ovi? And the answer is, and we're going to go through this entire pasuk, each word in the pasuk is going to be a mute. And it's going to tell us that in certain cases he can be Metame, and he will be Metame. Li'oviv hu di'enu Metame. Ha-Metame l'mes mitzvah. And a Kohen Gadol is Metame even for a mes mitzvah. And that leads us to Daf Memches, in which the Gemara is going to continue darshaning extra words in the pasuk as the pasuk delineates and enumerates different relatives. And there's no need to do so because the pasuk says, "Al kol nefashos meis lo yovo." And in each case, the extra word is going to be a mute for some situation where there will be a heter to be metam.